hard for me to say that I belong to one group. Um, what is most harmful? Oh gosh. Perceptions,
Perception.
stereotypes.
What's one stereotype?
What is stereotype?
No, what's one that you would say affects you?
One stereotype? One.
Mhm.
That was my phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he always goes off. Leave me alone. I've got work to do. I wish there was one stereotype.
Or just how you mentioned with your brother, that they always think girls are beneath, just
Yeah.
weaker.
But
Yes.
I don't see that so much because I think in my job, I've proven that I'm very capable. You know, I've proven to be indispensable. I try to learn. I try to make myself be indispensable to my boss
Mhm.
because I always want to do the best job possible. And the thing is, that way he looks at me and it doesn't matter what gender I am, what culture I am, I'm a good employee, irregardless of that. I wish the stereotype was, I can thin it down to one that's most harmful because they're all equally harmful depending on the situation. There's not really one thing that I can thin it down to.
How would you characterize your relationship with people of other races and cultural backgrounds and genders? For example, are they strictly professional, personal, or both? How would you determine the amount of interaction you have with these racial, cultural, gender groups?
Oh,
Every day.
every day. Well, there's always going to be a certain amount of professionalism. But embedded in professionalism is that you want to get to know the people you associate with because whether as a supervisor or whether as a coworker, I know that I cannot do the job the best that I can without their help. Anywhere from a student worker to the students I provide services to my boss. At some point, all of this, we have to have some professionalism.
Mm-hmm.
But I also try to build a relationship so that professionalism and the job goes hand in hand. Building that relationship is utterly just as important as the job itself. That's why it's something called office morale. If we have a common goal, regardless what we do, a common goal to provide services for our students. For example, the Upward Bound program. We recruit first-generation low-income students. They want to go to college. All we do is a college preparatory program to help them. It doesn't matter, male, female, short, tall, old, young. We have to see this common goal. If we do not see the same vision of helping these students, then how are we going to accomplish the job? So there has to be a morale. I want you to love coming to work. I want you to love helping these students. That want becomes to I need you to. So how do I provide an atmosphere that allows you to be happy to come to work? And in order to do that is to create that atmosphere, not only of professionalism, but an atmosphere that, you hate to say it, but of friendliness. Mm-hmm. Because I want you to be happy to come to work. Even if it means, I write a thank you note to you. Or respond to an email promptly. Something that says that I understand, I listen, I respond. And if that's all it takes, then why not?
Exactly. What was the most valuable lesson that you learned from your parents, grandparents, and other relatives about being different from other people? What were their attitudes towards other groups?
My mother said something to me when I left for college to the United States, and I didn't truly understand what it meant until many years later. She says to me, don't come home. You can come home to visit, but don't come home to stay. Because she's known as Oh, I'm a very rebellious child. Out of the three of us, I'm outspoken, to put it the least. I'm so outspoken. My father kicked me out of the house at 14. I lived with my grandparents for a while. I ended up living with my aunt. But because I'm outspoken, my mother knows that I will have a very difficult time being an adult in a country where I will never come up to any equal to anybody. I will always be looked down upon. My work will not stand on its own because I'm a woman. So that's why my mother says to me, don't come home. And that was very hard to learn. That was very hard. That's from my mother. I wish my father had some words for me. When I married my husband, which was the first person out of my whole family to marry outside of my culture, my father, when he was putting my veil on my head, said, you know, you can still say no. I was marrying the man I love. Irregardless, I do not see the color of his skin. I don't see him as, any different than he loves me for what I am, and I love him for what he is. Mm-hmm. And I just had to turn around to my father and says, just put the veil on and walk away. And sometimes you have to stand up even to your parents when you know that it is wrong. And sometimes it's hard. It's hard because my father, until his death, has never really seen me for what I hoped he would. He's always had the eye of discrimination on him because I was not the perfect child for him because I never conformed to his rules. I was always breaking them, at least according to him. I was always breaking them. So I wish that he was a lot more accepting, but but I hope that my daughter would see something differently. My grandparents, I think my grandparents have a different background, so that made them a little different. My grandfather was a refugee from China, so he fled a communist country. So, but he never really got a chance to talk very much about that. But he was a lot more accepting of my husband, Mike. When we come to visit, he would take him out, he will talk to him about World War II, and my husband thinks that he's just a vast of information. So I think they're a lot more accepting because they went through wars. They went through being a refugee. They know what it is to try and escape from discrimination. So, but I wish that they had given some lessons to their children and their children's children. It just doesn't cross that. It's very hard to teach them, what they went through and what they need to learn as being a lot more accepting. Mm-hmm. So I think what my grandparents taught was not so much their words, it was their actions.
Sometimes that's more than words.
Mm-hmm.
What recommendations do you have for counselors who wish to work effectively with persons from your group? Some Asian American women. What would you recommend?
Oh, listen, learn. Because, sometimes even women of Asian Americans that's never held out a full-time job, they've just been mothers and grandmothers, they are a vast of information. There are a vast of lessons to learn. And I've learned sometimes just sit and let them talk and learn from that. And sometimes once they've talked through it and they feel like they can trust you, you can ask those questions. Is it, if you go back, would you have done differently? Have you done differently for your children? Mm-hmm. How is life here different? Why would you hold on to certain traditions? Do you think that your child doing this or breaking this tradition hurts you more? Yeah. Or do you feel like they have a reason to be breaking that tradition? Some traditions are called traditions because it's just a habit of doing certain things a certain way. doesn't mean it's the best way to do things.
Mhm.
It's just that you've done it that way for 10 years. So some traditions are good to hold on to, and it creates
What tradition would you say you held on to and you would want your daughter to keep holding on to?
family.
Yeah.
Family comes first. That because as much as we are in a culture of work, family is important. And especially for my daughter, who's now do not have any grandparents, because I've lost both my parents, and my husband's side have lost both his parents. So she technically doesn't have any grandparents. And I find that we tend to hold on to her a lot more dearly, and she tends to hold on to us a lot more dearly. But with her less family, she has found her companionship with friends a lot larger.
Mhm.
And that's where I also found that she has friends whose parents truly like her to be in their family traditions. So sometimes she doesn't spend Christmas with us. She spends Christmas with,
Friends.
yeah, for friends, because their parents have adopted her, and I've talked to them before, and they asked if it was okay, because they found that she's been like one of their own daughters.
Mhm.
She's spent many years with their child, and they find that they build a sisterhood. So I said, by all means, yes. I think with her being an only child with me, I think she's really, really liking having siblings. Siblings.
Where's she at?
She's in Fort Worth.
Fort Worth.
Yeah,
Oh.
but the family that she's with is in Atlanta, and so they said, you should come over here and spend Christmas with us, but work just takes us so far, and there's not much time, so I said, I'll just send my daughter.
I can borrow her.
Yeah, so I think that to me is a lot more important.
And your food?
Oh, I
Another
wish it
food.
was food, but I can tell you, sometimes I like Vietnamese food a lot more than I like my own food, so yeah, I eat anything, even Mexican food.
Oh,
Sometimes
yeah.
I think I like Mexican food more than some Mexican people. So if I can
Right
cook
about
Mexican food, if I can make my own tortillas, I would be so gold.
All it takes is water and a little bit of salt.
I cannot get it out of the circle. It's just, I can't